like people that have like these weird little like 2-week boarding trains, and it's like that has to be so stressful.
Yeah, and again, there's a place around the corner from us that does primarily, I think, 2-week boarding trains. I think and again, I don't know that much about what this place does, obviously.
Yeah.
But for a while, I know they were doing primarily 2-week boarding trains. I think they might be offering like a 3 or a 4-week program now in addition to those. Mm-hmm. But I've seen this place post like update videos and stuff like that. And one of them in particular, I remember seeing, and it was like kind of disheartening because it's like all these, like this place has this like, the way they post stuff, it implies there's this curriculum we work through. And week 1 is we're always working on this. Week 2, we're always working on this. Or 5 days in working on this. 5 days we're working this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all the dogs should like stay on that same exact plan throughout the whole thing. Yeah. And they'll kind of post update videos, whether it's like once a week or whatever it is, of all of the dogs working the exact same thing. Like they're staying on plan with things, right? And there was one recently I saw this place post. They were working with this like Doberman or something, and I'm just like, casually scrolling through them, and first dog looks pretty good, second dog looks pretty good, third dog looks okay, fourth dog is just like a disaster, right? Yeah. And not a disaster as far as like not doing the things properly or anything like that, but like you could see in the video just how unbelievably stressed and like uncomfortable the dog was, and how much the dog was being just rushed through things for the point or for the purpose of getting past the stage that the dog needed to get past. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep. So I don't know, I'm not here to judge everybody else or anything like that, but like I look at that, and then I look at other things that I've seen this place talk about from the standpoint of like 2 weeks, we only do 2 weeks and stuff. And I'm like, that's why, because like, though that dog will probably be fine. Like, it's not like there's dogs that aren't stressed out with us. Like that for sure happens. Right. And I'm not anti-dog should be stressed by any means, but like if you had a little bit more time, maybe you could have worked through some of these pieces. And more so, what was important about the video was it wasn't even that the dog was stressed, right? I don't look too much into that because I don't know anything about the genetics of the dog. I don't know anything about how stressed the dog was when it started versus when it started training, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think that's a hard thing to judge on. It was that in the video, they were working like 4 different things. They were working like sit stays, come command, healing, and each one of those pieces, the dog was messing up a lot and getting a lot of corrections for it, which tells me that each of those individual pieces were not solid enough before moving on to combining the commands like that. Yeah. Right? Which is really where the rushing came into play, is it wasn't even the stress, it was that the dog was not performing the individual pieces fluently enough to be at that stage in things. Yeah. Right? Which, again, I get it. I made those mistakes before. I made those mistakes plenty of times. But, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even the best dog, I feel like 2 weeks would be like a rush, Yeah. Because they might get it, but they probably haven't grasped everything like perfectly.
The interesting thing with the short programs, we've offered a couple of them in the past, right? So, like we used to do 3-week programs. 3-week programs was kind of like our standard. And what I found with the 3-week programs is that there were a hell of a lot of dogs that did really good with it, and it was enough time, right? But there was a lot of dogs that also needed just a little more time, right? Or the dog was like finishing things right at 3 weeks.
No.
Man. They were finishing things like right at 3 weeks, right? Meaning we didn't give them enough time then to finish things and then build on some success. You know what I mean? Develop some habits of doing it successfully. So, and then, we used to offer some shorter programs. I think I've done a couple like 2-weekers before. I think one time, like when I first started, I did like 1 or 2 like 1-week board and trains, which used to be really popular back in the day because I think it was a really big selling point. Yeah. Leave your dog with us for a week. It won't be that expensive and we'll be able to train the dog. And it's like, there's just only so much you could do in that amount of time. Oh, you know what I mean? Like I remember one that was very successful that I did. That was a 1-week program, but this is like the anomaly, right? Like they don't all go like this. Right? Yeah. This dog was in town And the reason why we did a 1 week program as opposed to anything else is because the dog was in town from another state visiting family for 1 week. That's all they had, right? This person had a bunch of other family members that trained with us, right? They really wanted to use us for services. They're like, what can we get done in this amount of time, right? So they came into it with the right expectations. They're like, we know this is short, right? We know there's only so much we're going to be able to do in this time. What is it that we're actually able to accomplish, right? So they wanted to teach the dog better crate manners from the standpoint of being able to go into the crate. They wanted to teach the dog to walk better on a leash, and they wanted to teach the dog like a sit stay. And I was like, I think we can get those things done.
Yeah.
Right. And it wound up working out perfectly, right? Because I just broke up the sessions where I did 3 sessions a day with the dog, and I worked on each one of those pieces in each session, right? Dog went for a really long walk once a day, right? Leash walking is typically pretty easy to get started with dogs. It's pretty easy to get some good headway with, obviously.
Yeah.
We worked on the crate drills once a day where we taught it just like a bed stay, right? Teach the dog, go in the crate, go in the crate, go in the crate. And we worked sit stays in one session, right? Which is a sit stay is a very easy thing to teach with most dogs, just from the standpoint that the foundation of the initial command, which is sit, 99.9% of dogs know, right? So there's less teaching that goes into it. And generally speaking, when you're working with a dog, you're jumping right into proofing of that command. So that one worked out great. I think I did another 1 week board and train a long, long time ago. This is when I first started. That this was the time when we weren't even doing e-collar training with all the dogs. I think we just did like basic leash pressure work, some leash walking, some leash commands, things like that. But again, there's some downside to doing that because we know obviously the leash training stuff, if you're doing just leash and prong collar and trying to finish a dog on it, is very hard for people to maintain long term.